best of a generation, best of class, and best of those of us who are hoping to inspire others. My dearest, lovely, ingenious Dr. Lisa, how are you?
I am well. It's wonderful to be here with you, Munson.
Ah, thank you, thank you, thank you. So you were sitting in a tugboat off the coast of Florida, and you decided to get a PhD.
Well, part of that's right. I actually always loved education. When I was a kid, I literally used to line up my dolls and stuffed animals and point them toward the chalkboard, and I would teach them today's lesson. So being a teacher is in my blood. And so I love school. And next thing I knew, what, 17 years later, I was the first to get a PhD from from the Ohio State University.
Okay. So here it is. You get a PhD. You're going down that track, and some bug hits you, and you become a entrepreneur-ish. So, what was the first product that you brought to market? And for those who don't know, this is my favorite CEO to CEO, where I'm talking to my dear uh, inventor, creator of Fresh Dolls. Clearly, she's a founder, but I don't want people to think that CEOs start in one place and go right into their companies versus there's a journey and an execution of a vision that is constantly evolving and competing. So you got this PhD after being on a tugboat, and you decided that you were going to tug your way forward, and then boom, you began this creative mission with what? Is it a book?
With, I was going to say nothing but a vision and a dream, but I mean, literally, you got to understand, I was literally a college professor. So I was teaching, again, executives, MBAs, PhD students, and I was actually loving that. And then again, I saw this little Black girl who said that her skin was nasty when she was looking at a Black doll. And you're right, now it's like this, my worlds collide. And all of a sudden, being a professor is no longer satisfying. It got to the point where I knew I had to do this. I mean, I would go to work literally crying. I mean, I'm not talking about the little tears you can, that's dot away. I'm talking about like the ugly cry, where the mascara is running and all of that. Because when I saw that little girl say her skin was nasty, I knew that I had to do something about it. So then teaching, again, wasn't satisfying. I had to leave everything in essence and start creating these dolls.
Sounds simple, but there's very little that is um, an entrepreneur's dream, a colliding of purpose. So let's steep in that a little bit. So all of a sudden you realize that there's a new purpose for those people who are looking and they're learning, and our communities beginning to evolve. We've had these movements, and this is a moment of a movement where what you did, what you saw as a intellectual, a black intellectual. So at this moment, you are literally that Fannie Lou Hamer of those who want to create something for our children. You are literally that super sister with superpower getting ready to create, and your purpose collides. How can you share how important it is for purpose and for our children to have dolls that
Well,
look
thank you
like
for how
that?
you yes, thank you for how you described me. I do not see myself in any of those, but I am honored. But I just see myself as someone that's dedicated to making sure that our current generation and the next generation of our young men and young girls really know who they are, know their power, their brilliance, their intellect, their ability to create and do anything. So that's what I want them to know. And I guess in a way, I kind of live it because creating this company has not been easy. It's been a journey of a lot of heartache, a lot of disappointment, a lot of years. But it's also been very rewarding because I do feel like I'm making a difference. And that's what drives me in terms of how did I do it? By persistence, prayer, well, prayer, meditation, number one, then persistence, because literally there were days that I would say that's it. I'd hit up against that retail brick, or I hit up against perceptions of whether or not we have enough Black and brown dolls, and I would just hit it, and I would hit that wall, and I say, I'm done. I've done all I can. I've tried. I've given it the everything. But then I'd go to bed at night after having turned it over to surrender, say, I'm done. I wake up in the morning and something would hit me like, mm-mm, You got to keep moving, because if you don't do it, who's going to? And currently what they were getting was dolls that just did not respect their skin tones. It didn't reflect their beauty or their hair texture, or it just didn't reflect them. And that was so important to me that it kept driving me day by day to continue.
That's my long pause. The reason I say Fannie Lou Hamer is because I want you to receive that knocking on that retail door, as you have, being one of the first to say, hey, we need aisle space. We should have our toys on this space. We are receipt shareholders. There is a mission that your company should have to be able to provide so that they inspire the children that walk down these aisles, particularly in these stores that have customers that look like this, mothers who want to tell stories like this. So yes, Fannie Lou Hamer wanted us. She wanted us. And I want to say that because that's who you are in this industry. So it a lot applies. There's always the activist in us that says, hey, there's another young sister that is thinking about a game. There's another young sister that has created a game. But if you hadn't at least gotten the door, if you hadn't at least started, then we've got to recognize that, because you have been doing this how long now?
17 years, well, going on 18 years.
Right. So almost 2 decades, you've dedicated your life to the purpose of making sure that the stories that young Black girls are being told is not just by Mattel. So if a mom wants to really do herself a favor, then she could say, this doll, obviously, Fresh Dolls, was created by a woman, sister, aunt, mother that looks just like you, because you too should be a CEO and own a company like Fresh Dolls in any industry that you choose. I think that's what, when you think of best of a generation, we're working to give you inspiration to our children, not just to dolls that look like us, because many people take and siphon our dollars off, but dolls that are inspired by somebody who's dedicated their life to being in line with purpose. When Margaret Burroughs started the first Black museum, she wrote books prior to that. And one of her first books was What to Tell Your Child Because They're Black. Mm-hmm. Now, many of us do that, and what you're doing that is with a doll. Here you are the most beautiful. You have all the attitude, the style, the grace, encapsulated. So I think those are the things that I was saying and sharing with you when I think about Fresh Dolls and the idea of what it is, because it's not easy when you say retail. What are 3 of the things that anybody who's anticipating going to retail market that they need to know? They're going to get asked. You're going to have to overcome these 3 big things before you get in the door.
Oh, great questions. Okay, so number 1, you're going to have to convince them that they need your product. So that's going to be doing some research, going to the Walmart or Target or whomever that you're interested in, looking at what they have on the shelf and saying, they're missing my product. And then what is it about your product that's so unique that the customer base, the shopper, is going to want to buy that? So that's number 1. Then number 2 is put together a really nice presentation with nice photos. You don't have to have a prototype, because I'll be honest, prototypes, depending on what business you're in, are thousands of dollars. And when you are coming up as an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have that kind of bank sitting there. So nice photos or really beautiful graphics will work. Again, just so that the buyer can see your vision of what you see happening on their shelves. And in with that, have a marketing plan. So if you take my product and put it on the shelf, this is what I'm going to do to market to make sure the product comes off the shelf. And then the third thing I would say is know your numbers. One thing that Walmart taught me is how to be efficient, because retailers, they know how much they're going to sell their product for or your product for. The question is, are you making sure that you get enough money or get enough margin in it so that you can, 1, be profitable and stay in business? Because the retailer's only looking out for their bottom line. So they may say to you, I want this product at $5, but it takes you $4.50 to manufacture it, let alone to ship it over here and then to market it. So then in that case, there's just not enough margin. You've got to go back and re-engineer the product or renegotiate with your retailer. So making sure that your numbers make sense and are profitable for you is those are three things I would definitely tell any entrepreneur looking to work in the major retailers.
Long pause. I thank you for that. The one thing that I think, and obviously we're going back and forth. Obviously, those three are perfect. I will say the other thing, even prior to that, is just research. Like you
Yeah.
described it, but I think that's number one. Like literally number one. If you are not going to spend the time researching every one of those things before you even made a fake prototype, literally spending the time like you're spending money.
Well, in many ways, spending your time is more valuable than money, right? Because you cannot get your time back. So, but that is important. You know, you have to have the why, which is what you were talking about. You got to know why you're doing it. Because if you don't know why you're doing it, you'll stop because it's hard. And like you said, that very first thing, doing the research, a lot of times people say, well, I just got a brand new widget. Mine is the best looking, mouse trap ever. And look how pretty it is. And you're like, okay, but did you know that, the other company down the street has the same model that you do? No, I didn't know. What That's where the research comes in. So you know again what your unique offering is that no one else is doing, or they're not doing it right. That's where you start. After having the passion, of course, then you start actually doing the research in the market to see what's out there and why yours is better.
So, there's a beautiful Sankofa bird, and it looked over his shoulder because obviously you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And you think of a beautiful entrepreneur like yourself. When you were there, when you're looking back, as you look back on your 17 years, how would you say that you would change if you could speak to yourself now, 17 years ago? What would you tell yourself now as an angel, just whisper in your ear that as a CEO, that this is what your life is going to be?
I have never had that question. That is a number one. I would tell myself to trust and relax because a lot of it is so much anxiety and fear. Because in my case, I did not know anything about the toy industry. I literally was driven by that little girl I saw on television. And so I didn't know who the players were. I didn't know the process. I didn't know factory. I knew nothing. I know nothing. And so when you're putting all of your money into it and your property, because I also leveraged my house and everything to do this vision, when you push all the poker chips in and yet you don't know the rules of the game, because I didn't know the rules of the toy industry. It was very nerve wracking. There were lots of sleepless nights, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. So I would tell myself now to relax and trust myself that I would know the right decisions to make. Now, sometimes I made the bad decision, but in making the bad decision, I learned the right decision because I learned what to do the next time. So that's number one. I tell her to relax. And then I would tell her that everything that she needs will appear. And I know that sounds kind of whimsical, but that's where faith comes in. That I can tell her if she would just do what is hers to do, which is have that passion to create these products for these little girls. If you'll just hold on to that, that everything and everybody and every money, whatever you need will show up. And it may not show up how you expect it to, but miraculously someone will send you enough money that you'll have enough to scrape together to get that airline ticket to go meet with your retailer. I mean, really, things that show up. And then the third thing I would say is you're going to live a life well lived. And you're going to live a life well lived because you're going to live one centered on giving back and uplifting your community. And those are three things.
Long pause. And I say that because I think CEOs have to know how to pause. You have to know how to pause and listen because many times we get on that treadmill and you're really rushing and you don't pause. How have you learned to pause and actually enjoy just being Dr. Lisa's CEO and enjoy being in your own skin and just appreciate where you are? How have you been able to live in that moment now?
You ask such great questions, but the thing is, there's a part of me that doesn't think that I've yet arrived. And I know my family and friends think that I'm a little bonkers, but it's because I still have, it's like, once you achieve one goal, then there's a next one right there. And then after you achieve that one, then there's another one. And so because I'm so driven by making sure that I create something for our children and leave something for them, it's not done yet because there's so many children that don't yet have these dolls or have access to them. So my job, my work, my job, my purpose is not over. So that it's kind of hard for me to say, how do I enjoy being here? Because I'm not yet where I want to be. But how I enjoy this moment, which is what I focus on, is just that. Meaning I oftentimes throughout my day take a moment to just pause,
Right.
just
So
breathe.
let's play. I'm going to play devil's advocate because I believe there are two things that happen as CEOs, and I think as particularly CEOs of color. We're talking best of a generation. You know, in life, you only race yourself. So there's no other race. There's not going to be another race. And literally, you saying, well, I want to be someplace else. But you're in this particular moment. You have more dolls. Let me ask you a question. Who has more, what Black woman has more dolls on the shelf than you?
To my knowledge, none.
What Black woman at Christmas sold more dolls than you?
I don't know what everybody's sales revenue were, but we did very well this Christmas. I'm pleased.
What Black woman has more dolls on the shelf at Christmas time than you?
No one that I'm aware of.
What Black woman or white single owner woman has more dolls on the shelf of Walmart than you?
No one that I'm aware of.
My point is, when you can say certain things, revel in the moment. You know, to say that you're competing against a publicly traded company that can decide to lose millions just to say they did. Just to say they did. They can come out with a line of black dolls just to say they did. They don't have to sell. So what I'm saying is that's you got to revel in your own moment, in your own truth, because that's the truth for me as a CEO. When I look at it, I tell my friends, Dr. Lisa is the best, is the biggest, is the most purposeful woman on the aisles at any store, major retailer, and we need to support her more. Now that's just facts. Now, do you want more? You know, it's kind of like eating and being sitting there, have three courses and think you need a fourth. I mean, I think the human spirit often wants, but you need to know, congratulations, Dr. Lisa, you are best of class. You're the best of a generation. You are best of a generation. You are definitely a lighthouse for anybody who needs to know and at least gauge your life. You just got to receive that. And I know you want more, but that's almost like saying, okay, if you could find an investor and they were not going to abuse you, make you minimize you in life, how much money would you take to sell? And if you called me up, I'd say sell it tomorrow. So you can sail off with a big check and enjoy what the next thing would be. But you like that moment. You like going through that exercise. And it's my exercise. And I get it. I just want you to know that you and God are having a life on your terms. So when you choose that, because I think it's very important, you know, I think of some of my other friends that have sold businesses. They built them, they've sold them, they've got the cash, and that is a strategy. But if you are Black and you have a purpose to serve babies and Black girls and Black boys, and you're going to have it on your terms, you can anticipate until racism is illegal, until access to capital is level playing field, that having it on your terms will come with a degree of what, Dr.
Heartache, disappointment, pain, struggle. It's hard. And you are 100% right in everything you said, particularly when you want to do it on your terms. You're right. There were times I had kind of.
They want to come take your stuff. They already ready to come take your stuff. I mean, that's the history of us. You create culture, you create these fresh dolls, you create these fresh babies. They're ready to take your culture and move you out the way, take your IP, your intellectual properties, and just move you all to the side and make you a asterisk of what used to be, and hope you go home. I get it. I just want you to know you're having it on your terms. I mean, that's it's one of those, you've catered your own life meal, and so
Yeah, I will say that. I will definitely do that. Those who know me say it has to be it has to be my way or no way. But here's the thing about that, because I'm so committed about what I do and why it's so important, that allowing someone else to come in, even though they may have cash, capital, whatever, but if they're coming in and they want me to change, or they want me, which I've been asked, they want me to push forward the Caucasian dolls front, that's an easy no for me, because that's not why I got into this business. I didn't get into this business to be the wealthiest, right? I got into this business because this little girl said her skin was nasty. So given that's my reason, and when you're coming to me and you're saying, well, we want, you have too many brown dolls or you have too many curly hair dolls, then that's easy for me to say to them, no. And I've done
or,
it,
or
Muncie,
maybe
and I
it's
know you.
time to swim in a new ocean. Maybe we're saying to them, and they don't get it, and you do your big deal with your, like you're doing with your multi international corporation that will be able to deliver your dolls to Africa, Brazil, and all the other places where those brown babies exist. We know there are more brown babies in Brazil, outside of Africa, so we're clear on that. So we know that the expansion of fresh dolls to Brazil, fresh dolls to Africa, um, I think that we all see that. But I wanted people to see your passion. I want people to see your genius, particularly in a generation that is changing. What do you forecast in the toy business, as we move forward? How is that moving for our community? And what would you say to a person that wants to be a CEO, that wants to have dolls, that's trying to forecast the future of this business? Where is it going?
That's a great question. I think it's trying to figure it out, to be honest with you. So there's two different aspects of the toy industry, right? There is the organization of the toy industry, and then there's those who buy in the toy, like the consumers, right? So that's it. To me, that's a toy industry too. And sometimes what we do as an organization in the toy industry, although well-meaning, does not match up perfectly to the demands in the marketplace. And that's another place that EPI with the fresh dolls and positively perfect dolls, where we fit that gap, right? Because what the consumer wants in terms of multicultural and what they're getting may not, historically has not been the same. And like I said, what we're trying to do is make sure that you get what you need and you get what you deserve.
You're not trying, you're doing it. You've been doing it for
I'm doing it.
18 years. You're not trying. You're not trying. And we don't believe in try here at CEO to CEO. It
You know
is.
what? Thank you for letting me sit in a different seat. And what I mean is, I'm always sitting in the seat of the CEO, but the CEO that's the problem solver, because that's, as you know, as a CEO, that's really your job title number one, problem solver. So since I sit in that problem solver seat every day, all day, every moment, it is a challenge for me sometimes to look back and see, not looking at the problems you have to solve this afternoon, for example, but what have you accumulated today? And you are right, and I will take credit for that and my team, that we have created a wide variety of skin tones, authentic facial features, unique hairstyles, fashions and clothes. We've created from two dolls, which is what I had initially, with no bank funding, with no mentorship, with no one in the toy industry who recognized what I was doing. That we've gone from two dolls to, oh gosh, over hundreds of SKUs with four different category of dolls, including for boys. We have big dolls, little dolls, skinny dolls. We have them, and you're right, that is an accomplishment of persistence and faith, because there wasn't somebody over here that had a bag full of cash and said, hey, I got $1 million for you, now go out and create these dolls. Literally, it was creating, I'd make $1, I spend $1.50 and making the next line. That's just kind of how it happened. And you're right, that does take perseverance, and my team and I have dedicated our lives to this. And you are right, we need to take a moment to breathe and say, yep, there's more that we want to do. But as I look at these dolls across my desk right now,
Let me see.
this is well, let's see. We have one that has some braids. See, this is one of our bigger dolls that we started out with earlier. So yeah, I mean, just the fact that we've gone from, here's our deeper skin tone with beautiful curly hair, So we've gone from the bigger dolls to our smaller dolls, again, that they have afros. We even have our boy dolls, which now represents our doctor in honor of healthcare. And we have our female surgeons and doctors also representing our honoring of our healthcare
Creators,
workers.
or creators of the vaccine.
Right, I love it. Scientists with the creators of the vaccine. Yes,
President of Morehouse Medical School, Dr. Rice,
absolutely.
female, doctor, engineer.
Love it.
Yeah,
Love it.
yeah.
And we want to be able to offer dolls in those likenesses too. You know, we really want our children and our adults, for that matter, to see themselves reflected. So the people that you've identified, we would love to do a doll in their honor. We're trying to again
Not trying.
Not trying. Okay, we are trying. We are in the
You
process
don't
of
call
making
me for that.
contracts.
You didn't say you wanted that. I mean, that's why you call me, because we
Oh, you
can
know
create.
people.
No,
Yo, people know.
I don't know if you were at our last conference. Those people were there. So Dr. Rice was, when we did the state of Black health. She was there to talk about the state of Black health, the fact that she's doing trials and research at Morehouse. We understand and describe the hesitancy about taking the shot during the pandemic, the importance of basic trials. So, but yes. And I think the other thing is just layers. It's just, if I have a hospital jacket on and it's black, it's for everybody that wears and puts on a lab coat. I mean, that's basically a lab coat. So whether it's a doctor, whether it's a researcher, all of those are the images and how we approach that. So I think
Absolutely.
I think in getting people to actually start fresh doll collections so that people can kind of move in that direction and remember to kind of play retro. I really like the concept, and I just want our community to know who has been best of going on 2 decades of serving our children, to let them know that they should be proud of not only their skin but their capacity. And for me, what you always shared with me is not allowing anybody to have agency on how we define ourselves and define our skin color. That it is not for them to tell us what our skin is, and it's not for us to allow someone else to have agency over our children's mindset, how they perceive or have awareness of who they can be. And that's what I love about Fresh Dolls, that it discontinues giving a license to someone else to have agency over our children's mindset. So I really appreciate that. We've got some dolls coming out called Scholars, which we're really excited about, our Scholar series over at Little Professor Sky and Adam Smart. So we've got Scholar dolls coming out, but just wanted to make sure that everybody knows my favorite toy maker in the business is Dr. Lisa, because I think she has such a supreme idea and presence and purpose. I think that's what's so beautiful about everything that you do at Fresh Dolls.
Thank you, Munson. It's and I have to say, what you're doing, I think, is amazing. Also, I mean, focusing on the scholars and Little Professor Sky, I think it's incredible. Again, and
No,
you're
I'm doing all this with you. Don't get off task. Don't get off task. You know, cultural collaboration is the
I
key.
agree
The
more.
collaboration of our community, collaborating and understanding our determination to have collective thought, uh, which is why it's easy to think of you. Uh, so I just want to say thank you for being with me on CEO to CEO. You are always one of the best. You always give such insight, and congratulations on another great year with Fresh Dolls for all you moms figuring it out as we go past Christmas. But there are a ton of birthdays getting ready to happen. So be sure that you go to Fresh Dolls, check her out, support it. For all of you who are feeling lonely and want to know during the pandemic, increase your doll collection by having a few more Fresh Dolls as you think about how you can have a collection of dolls to be there when you're by yourself and wanting to be in your own bubble during the pandemic. I'm Munson Steed, and this is Dr. Lisa. And we want to thank you for being on CEO to CEO. You the best.
Oh, thank you so much. It was my honor. And if you want to know more about the Fresh Dolls, pop into thefreshdolls.com and you can see our entire collection of boy dolls, girl dolls, big dolls, small dolls. they're there.
Dr.
TheFreshDogs.com.
Lisa Wicker, CEO and founder of Fresh Dogs. Thank you so much. We'll see you again on CEO to CEO. Peace.
Thank you, Munson.